Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here and I'm so glad you clicked on today's video. We are going to be talking about all the books I read throughout the month of October. It's one of my favorite videos to film on my channel. I love sitting down at the end of every month talking about the books we read. October was kind of like a baby reading month for me. I didn't read as many books as I was hoping to, but we still read some really fun ones. There were a ton of new releases that we read that I really just wanted to take my time with because they were some of my most anticipated reads of 2023. So I think that's kind of why I didn't read as much during October, but for the most part we read some incredible books. They were all 4 and 5-star reads. We are going to talk all about them in today's video, but before we hop into it, I just want to say a quick thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. You guys already know I'm like a huge Book of the Month girly. I love my Book of the Month. I love seeing this little blue box pop up at my doorstep every single month. If you've never heard of Book of the Month before, they are basically a popular and fast online growing book service for readers. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers discover books they love. Their team vets hundreds of books each month and gives readers their choice from a curated selection of new and early release titles so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. Book of the Month also has just launched curated audiobooks along with their hardcovers, which is so exciting. When you go in and pick your books for the month, you actually have the choice between picking hardcover books or their audiobooks, which I think is so fun. I'm like a huge audiobook girly too. Book of the Month is also risk-free, so you can skip any month at any time and you won't be charged. Not to mention they have the best price for new release hardcover fiction, and you guys can actually use my code GOBBLE, so cute, to get your first book for just $9.99. So for the month of November, I picked out 2 romances. The first one is This Spells Love by Kate Robb. This cover is just giving off like all the cozy, magical, lovey-dovey vibes. And then you guys already know I had to pick up Ali Hazelwood's newest book, Check-In Mate. This is her YA debut. I am so excited for this. I know I'm gonna love it because it's Ali Hazelwood. She's one of my favorite authors. I literally just eat up everything she puts out into the world. Book of the Month is such a steal. I could not recommend them enough, and you guys can use my code GOBBLE to get your first book for just $9.99. Do it. You will not regret it. With all that being said, we're gonna hop right into my October wrap up. I read a total of 5 books in the month of October. I told you guys it was like a baby reading month for me. 3 of these books are brand new releases. They either came out at the end of September or early October, so I took a lot of time reading new releases throughout October just because I was so excited. They were some of my most anticipated reads of the year. They're some of my favorite books and authors, so I just want to take my time, soak it all in. Hopping right into it, we have Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the 5th and final book of the Chestnut Spring series. You guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about the Chestnut Spring series, so I'll try to keep it brief. Basically, it's my favorite series of 2023. That series took me by storm, to be completely honest. I read the first 3 books in the beginning of this year and was totally shocked at how much I enjoyed it. It basically revolves around this cute little family that lives in Chestnut Springs, the Eaton family. Each book is about each brother finding love, or like someone who's close to the family finding love. And the reason why I didn't think I was gonna like this series is because it's very country, cowboy aesthetic heavy, and I personally have just never been into that type of stuff, so I didn't think I was gonna like that type of storyline when it came to reading. I was wrong because I am obsessed with it, and now I love country music. I love country aesthetic. I bought a pair of cowgirl boots. The first 3 books I read in the beginning of this year, absolutely love them. The 4th book came out, I want to say during the summertime, and that was amazing. I was living for Theo and Winter's story. And the final book, Hopeless, just came out in early October. It's the final book in the series. It tells the story of Beau Eaton, who we kind of meet briefly throughout the first 4 books, but he's more so in the background, and you're kind of always wondering what his story is, what he's all about. I think in the first 3 books he's actually away because he's in the army. We hear little things here and there about him and his experiences in the army. In book 3, something crazy happens. In book 4, Beau comes home and we see little glimpses of him at home. He's very different from the character he was in the first few books, and you're kind of wondering like what happened to him while he was away. Why is he acting this way? What happened to Beau Eaton? Hopeless is all about Beau. We finally get to learn about his story, what happened to him. I love this one so much. I feel like I was waiting for it for the longest time. I knew I was gonna love Beau no matter what, because the little glimpses of him we get throughout the first 4 books was just, I don't know, you just like fall in love with him through those little glimpses. So I knew going into this I was gonna adore him, and I did. I absolutely adored Beau. I adored Bailey. Their whole story is so sweet and cute. Basically in this story though, Beau is home from the army. He is taking up work on the family farm, helping his brother. Bailey is a little bit younger younger than him. I think it's actually an age gap trope in here. I think she's in her 20s and he's like in his late 30s. Bailey is kind of outcasted in Chestnut Springs because of her family and her family name. Everyone just doesn't like her family. They're not the best people. They seem to cause a lot of problems for other people in Chestnut Springs. So because Bailey has that last name, people just look down at her. They don't want to be associated with her. They don't want to give her jobs or anything like that. So Bailey has struggled her entire life trying to get by in Chestnut Springs. She finally found work as a bartender at this bar in town, and she's been hanging onto it by a thread. Beau, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Everyone is obsessed with the Eaton family and knowing his story. He's an army vet. He's like the town hero. So everyone just like praises Beau and loves Beau. So they come from very opposite and different lives. Because Beau is who he is, he has always been kind to Bailey and looked out for her. And basically one night at the bar, they get into this debate about her last name and how it's keeping her from moving up in the world. Bailey claims that because of her last name, she can't get anywhere, and Beau claims that that's not true. That's just the most ridiculous thing he has ever heard. So they come up with this insane pact to basically get fake engaged. It's basically to help Bailey find a new job, make more money, and get out of Chestnut Springs, but also keep Beau's family off his back, because ever since he came home, everyone's been kind of walking on eggshells around him because they don't know like what happened exactly to him. They're just happy to have him home, but they're also nervous for his well-being and his happiness. So that's basically what this whole story revolves around. It's a fake engagement trope. It's an age gap trope. I loved every second of it. I thought it was so fun and cute. It was 5 stars for me. Not a shocker at all. The entire series was 5 stars for me. I really enjoyed this. I saw some people say they were like a little disappointed with it and it wasn't their favorite, but I genuinely loved it so much. I love this story for Beau. I'm a sucker for a fake dating trope also, so that's another reason why this got me. Absolutely adorable. Could not recommend the Chestnut Springs series enough. It will literally change you, I promise. Next up, we have Broken Vow by Sophie Lark. This is book 5 in the Brutal Birthright series. If you've never read those books before, or if you're not familiar with the series, it's basically like a dark mafia romance series, and it revolves around 2 mafia families. In book 1, we kind of see the families come together in a truce. They hold an arranged marriage between the youngest of the Italian mafia and the oldest of the Irish mafia. It's an enemies to lovers. It's absolutely incredible. I loved book 1. But from that point on, through every book, we see each sibling kind of find love and figure out who they are in the world aside from being part of a mafia family. And in Broken Vow, it revolves around the middle child of the Irish mafia, Riona. She is the family lawyer. She handles all the paperwork and stuff like that because the families are basically in the construction business together and real estate business. So she handles all the paperwork and contracts for that. Also trying to keep them out of trouble. If one of them lands in jail or something like that, she can get them out easily. And then the MC in this is Raylan. He's actually one of the friends of Dante who we meet in the book previous to this one. Raylan was in the army with Dante and they became really close friends. In Broken Vow though, because they're both mafia families, in that world there's a lot of danger and violence and stuff like that. They kind of always have targets on their backs. So to make sure that Riona stays safe and that she stays out of trouble, Dante and her older brother Cal basically bring Raylan in to be her personal bodyguard, which she does not like. She does not vibe with Raylan at all. Riona is very independent and very about her personal space, her personal bubble. So having Raylan attached to her hip 24/7 is not ideal for her, and she definitely struggles with that throughout the story, and you read all about it. But Raylan is basically brought in to be her personal bodyguard for the time being, and eventually somewhere in the story it gets to be a little bit crazy and chaotic. Raylan just decides to kind of take her away from Chicago where everyone is and hide her away somewhere safe. And this is where the story gets so good. It's so funny because I remember in the reading vlog for this, I literally compared it to the Chestnut Springs series, which seems crazy. Hear me out. Raylan grew up in a very small country town and he grew up on a ranch. It just gives off Chestnut Springs vibes. I swear. I did not see this coming when jumping into this. I ate up every second of this book. I felt like I was reading like an extension of the Chestnut Springs series and I was living for it. It was so stinking cute and fun. It was amazing. It's probably one of my favorite books in the entire series because of those vibes. Basically, Raylan takes Riona to his hometown. It's so fun to see Riona transition from a badass lawyer city girl into a small town country girl. girl. It was the most fun transition to read about because she just has no idea what she's doing. She's used to wearing suits and high heels every day, and she's swapping that for dresses and cowgirl boots. Everything about it is just so cute. And I remember one of my favorite scenes out of this book is when Raylan and his family and Riona actually go out dancing, and it's just such a cute stinking book. It still has like that mafia aspect in here. There's a lot of action and violence in it still, and it was such a fun read. I absolutely loved it. It was 4 stars. Definitely one of my favorite books out of this series, I think. I also feel like Raylan and Riona might be one of my favorite couples out of the series. I love every couple for different reasons, but there's something about them that just got me. Like, I was swooning over them the entire time. Another new release that we tackled in the month of October is King of Greed. If you know, you know. This is one of my favorite authors of all time. I am obsessed with the Twisted series, and I know it's kind of a controversial series, but it's genuinely like one of my favorite book series ever. I will never stop thinking about those characters, those stories. The Kings of Sin series is her newest series. King of Greed is book 3. I think King of Pride came out earlier this year. I can't remember. I feel like book 2 came out earlier this year though. Absolutely ate that book up. I am obsessed with Kai and Isabella. As of right now, they are still like my favorite couple in the series, but King of Greed is a close second. This book was so good. It's actually a second chance romance between a husband and a wife. It tells the story of Dom and Alessandra, I believe. I'm so bad with names. Basically, Dom is like the king of Wall Street. He is a workaholic. He's under high stress. He's one of those people who came from nothing and built this incredible empire. Over the years, he starts to neglect his wife. He forgets anniversary dates, special trips, stuff like that. And eventually his wife just gets sick of it and says that enough is enough and decides to leave him. And that's when Dominic's world basically falls apart and he doesn't know what to do because he realizes that he has nothing unless he has her. So this whole story basically revolves around him trying to win back his wife. I thought it was so cute. I like that it was a second chance romance. I love seeing Dominic's character change throughout the story. He comes to the realization that yeah, he built this amazing empire, but he lost his wife in the process, and he realizes that she's the most important thing in his life. So he spends this entire book trying to win her back, and every second of it was just absolutely adorable. I loved it. I loved their relationship. I loved seeing their character development. Alessandra the entire time was kind of living as Dominic's wife, and when she finally leaves him, she starts to live for herself, and it was really cool to see her grow as well and become more independent. She opens her own floral shop. She gets her own place and starts going out more, and it's really cool to see that character development as well. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I'm such a big fan of the Kings of Sin series. It does revolve in the same universe world as the Twisted series as well, so you kind of see the Twisted couple show up every now and then. I won't tell you who specifically we see from the Twisted series in King of Greed, but we do get a few small cameos of one of the couples, and I was living for it so much. But this was absolutely adorable. I am such a big fan of her writing. I'm obsessed with all her characters and all her stories. Next up, we have Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is actually the special edition of it from Probably Smut Book Club. I am living for this cover. I feel like it just gives off all the cozy summery vibes. This was another new release in the month of October. It's the second book in the Maple Hill series. Book 1 is Icebreaker, and basically the series revolves around hockey players finding love. I always say if you're a big Al Kennedy fan, if you love The Deal, the Off-Campus series, you will eat these books up because it's very similar writing styles. It's very similar vibes. Everything about it is just so much fun. Book 1 is one of my favorite books of 2023. It just got me in all the feels. Book 2 is slightly different though. The MC in this is a hockey player from Maple Hills, but because this takes place during the summertime, we don't really get those hockey vibes because he's on break. This was such a fun, fluffy, feel-good romance. It kind of gives off forbidden love vibes, and I'll explain why in a second, but basically this tells the story of Russ and Rory. They hook up at a college party before the semester ends, and they kind of are left wondering like, oh, I wonder if I'll ever see that person again. So they both end up being camp counselors at the same camp. They kind of figured they'd never see each other again, so seeing each other at camp was just a total shock for them. One of the biggest camp rules though is that counselors can't date other counselors or see other counselors. They're kind of put in this weird limbo because they literally had just hooked up together a week prior. When they find out they are camp counselors together, they both kind of struggle with keeping to the rules. Rory doesn't want to break the rules because she loves that camp. She's been going to it since she was young, and if you break the rules, you're basically like never allowed back on the ground. Russ doesn't want to break the rules because he has a really bad at-home life. life, and if he gets kicked out of camp and he doesn't have the job anymore, he basically has to go back home because he has nowhere else to go. We basically watch them go back and forth throughout the whole story, struggling with breaking the rules and not breaking the rules. There's obviously this tension between the two of them. A lot of people say they don't really like this series because they feel like there's not a main plot or storyline to it all, and I feel like that's why I kind of like the stories. They're just like fluffy romances, and sometimes you just need a good feel-good romance like that. So it's definitely like your preference when it comes to reading, but I absolutely adored this. It was 4 stars. I am such a sucker for Hannah Grace's writing style. It's very easygoing, fast-paced, it's fun, it's captivating, you won't want to put it down. I also tabbed the heck out of this book, as you guys can probably see. I actually sent like a cutie little annotation key with the special edition, and they sent book tabs with it as well. So while I was reading, I tabbed along, and it was so much fun. I adored this. It was 4 stars. I personally would recommend it, especially if you like Elle Kennedy's books, if you like hockey romances. The 5th and final book that we finished in the month of October was actually a book I carried over from September. It's a very chunky book. It's a very chunky series, you guys probably already know, but we finally finished A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the acotar series. I love this. I love this so much. Going into it, I didn't think I was gonna love it because a lot of people talk about how this book kind of covers more of the politics in the series, but I ate this up, and it honestly may be one of my favorite books so far. I really liked book 2 because of the romance in it, but in this book I feel like I was actually really into the politics, and I really loved getting to know all the characters more. I feel like the first 2 books mainly revolve around 3 characters, and I loved that, and I love Feyre's story, but I feel like in this book we get to learn so much more about Feyre's sisters. We get to learn more about the Bat Boys. I think at the end of this I am officially a Cassian girly, and I'm so excited because everyone says that A Court of Silver Flames is like Cassian's time to shine. I am so excited for that book. I love learning more about Cassian and Azriel. I love learning more about Nesta and Elaine. I liked watching all their stories intertwine. The politics of it was also really fascinating to me. I feel like I have a better grip on the entire story right now because of it. I actually listened to the dramatized audiobook version of this. A lot of you had recommended it for this series, and I have to say at first I couldn't really get into it because there's different voices, different sounds, and music throughout it. I thought it was really weird at first because I had never listened to anything like that before. I feel like after listening to the dramatized audiobook, I like can't go back. I'm gonna have to listen to the audiobooks for the next 2 books in the series as well because it just made it so much more fun, so much more immersive. Because it's a full cast of people voicing these characters, I feel like it was also easier to keep track of all the characters and learn more about them. One of the hardest things about this series I feel like is definitely the names. Some names I didn't know how to pronounce at first. Different places in the world I didn't know how to pronounce, and listening to the audiobook just helped tremendously with that. And then I also feel like having the different sound effects and the music in the background just really helps set the mood for every chapter. Like when they're in battle and you could hear their weapons kind of clinking together, and you have the dramatic music in the back. Like it was so much fun. It honestly felt like I was just listening to a movie but without the visuals. I really enjoyed it. It made this book so much more enjoyable for me. I did only rate it 4 stars, which the first 2 books in the series were 5 stars, and I think it might be the audiobook's fault when it comes to this, but there were just certain scenes in this that I found really uncomfortable, kind of cringy. It was some of the lovey-dovey scenes we see in this book that were just like, I don't know. I couldn't get into it. It was kind of uncomfortable for me, so that's why I knocked it down a star. But other than that, I absolutely ate this book up. I loved it. I loved every second. I'm so excited to move on to the next book in the series. These are the 5 books I tackled in the month of October. I feel like for the size of the books too, it was a pretty decent reading month for me. Usually I average around 6 to 7 books every month. October was definitely a lighter month for me. We're just gonna blame this book because this book was absolutely massive, and I think the audiobook for it was over 20 hours. It was something crazy like that. So if you've made it this far in the video, comment down below what your favorite read of October was. Also, if you've read any of the books I mentioned in today's video, let me know which ones you liked, which ones you didn't like. These were all hits for me. October was a pretty fun and successful reading month. I feel like I always kind of slow down at the end of the year as well when it comes to reading, with the holidays coming up. Nonetheless, here's to a happy and productive November. May we all read all the books we want to on our TBR. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you had fun. My hope for all these videos I ever do is that you're able to take away one new read. Hopefully you're able to take away one new book from my wrap up. But yeah, that's all from me. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video.
Afternoon on a train. I only took it because it started to rain. Afternoon in the forest.